the Proto-Indo-European language and its spread across the world from the Stone Age through the Copper Age and into the Bronze Age represents a fascinating period of human history, revealing complex migrations, cultural transformations, and the dawn of linguistic diversity as we know it today. These narratives span thousands of years and cover vast expanses of Eurasia, marking the beginnings of many of the world's major language families. The story of the Proto-Indo-Europeans, also called Aryans and Eurasians, begins with the question of the homeland, a topic of scholarly debate. The most widely accepted theory places the Eurasian homeland in the Pontic-Caspian steppe, covering today's Ukraine, Russia, and Kazakhstan. From this region, during the late Neolithic period, around 4500 to 2500 BCE, just after the cultivation of the vine and making wine was discovered by people from that same Black Sea region, known as the Caucasus, Colchis, and Armenia. The Eurasian people began their expansive journey in all directions, east, west, and even north and south. They travel as far east as India and as far west as the Atlantic Ocean. We know this due to several reasons. Culture, religion, and language are three of the biggest clues. For example, Meter in Proto-Indo-European is mother in English, Modar in Gothic Germanic, Meter in Ancient Greek, Matar in Persian, and Matar in Sanskrit, showing the close proximity of a language that stretches all the way from one ocean to the other, showing how far and wide the Eurasian people spread. That's just one example of many. Pitar in Sanskrit, which is father in English, comes from the Proto-Indo-European Theter. Brater in Sanskrit, which is brother in English, comes from the Proto-Indo-European Breter. Even cultic religious terms like Sehech, which means holy or sanctified, like sanctus or sankio. The word hagios in Greek, which also means sacred, is cognate with the Sanskrit yachios, hence the Yajurveda, or worship knowledge, coming from the Proto-Indo-European hayag, and the Sanskrit word soma, cognate with the Persian haoma, is a sacred drink that is incognate with the Germanic word for God, gota, coming from Proto-Indo-European word gehu, to pour, libate, or invoke. This also shows evidence that religion itself may come from psychedelic potions and ritual use. Europe's Stone Age, spanning from the Paleolithic through the Neolithic periods, has yielded a wealth of artifacts that provide insight into the spiritual life, artistic expression, and daily practices of its ancient inhabitants. Among these, some of the most remarkable and ancient artifacts include the Lion Man, Venus figurines, and other significant archaeological finds that reflect the complexity and richness of early human societies. These artifacts not only showcase the artistic skill of prehistoric peoples, but also offer clues to the social structures, beliefs, and environments of the time. The Lion Man is an outstanding example of Upper Paleolithic art discovered in the Hohenstein-Stadel cave in Germany's Swabian Alps in 1939, which further pieces found in subsequent excavations dated to approximately 40,000 years ago. Deep in the Stone Age, this ivory figurine depicts a humanoid figure with a lion's head, standing about 31 centimeters tall. It is one of the earliest known examples of a figurative art and suggests a form of early mythological thinking or religious belief, possibly embodying a deity or serpent being. The Lion Man demonstrates the sophisticated symbolic and artistic capabilities of Homo sapiens in Europe. Venus figurines are small Paleolithic statues of women characterized by exaggerated sexual features, found across Europe and as far as Siberia. These figurines date from about 35,000 to 10,000 years ago, some even going past 100,000 of years ago, with the most famous examples including Venus of Willendorf, 30,000 BCE, Austria; Venus of Hohlfels, 40,000 BCE, Germany. Venus of Dolní Věstonice, 25,000 BCE, Czech Republic. Venus of Bracembouv, 25,000 BCE, found in France, with detailed head coverings or possibly braided hair. Some even dated back to hundreds of thousands of years ago, like the Venus of Barakat Ram, dating to 250,000 years ago. And the oldest one so far, the Venus of Tantan, 500,000 years ago, found in Spain. While their exact purpose remains debated, theories suggest they may have been related to fertility rites, goddess worship, or simply artistic representations of the human form. These figurines provide significant insights into the societal roles of women, fertility, and the aesthetic sensibilities of Paleolithic peoples of Eurasia. While not in Europe today, Göbekli Tepe, possibly the oldest advanced religious megalithic structure on the planet, dated to at least 10,000 BCE in the Stone Age, and was once occupied by the same Proto-Indo-Europeans who inhabited Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey, only named after the Turks in the 14th century conquered the region. Long ago, places like Cappadocia and Phrygia, and as far back as the Hittites, who are Proto-Indo-European speakers, inhabited these lands and left huge underground cities. These underground cities were so large and complex that the people inhabiting them could have survived catastrophic events happening above ground for years at a time, with rooms for cattle, water chambers, and enough space for the entire clan to live underground till conditions are safe. The location of this region in Cappadocia is eerily close to the spot where Noah was said to have landed the Ark, leading some to suspect that this place draws allegorical comparisons to Noah's Ark. Cappadocia, a historical region in central Anatolia, is renowned for its unique geological formations, rich history, as well as these remarkable underground cities carved into soft volcanic rock. These underground cities, some dating back to the Bronze Age, were used by the inhabitants of the region for various purposes over millennia, including as refugees from invasions, places of worship, and living quarters. The most famous of these subterranean complexes include Derinkuyu, Kaimakli, Ozkanak, and many others, with each of its own history and architectural features. The mention of Göbekli Tepe in Anatolia is relevant for understanding the broader context of Stone Age monumental architecture and religious practices. Dating back to the 10th millennium BCE, Göbekli Tepe is considered the world's oldest temple complex, predating Stonehenge and the Egyptian pyramids. Its circular structures, adorned with animal and abstract carvings, suggest a sophisticated level of societal organization and spiritual life among early Neolithic communities. The primary purpose of the underground cities was to provide protection against invaders and harsh wealth conditions. Throughout history, the region of Cappadocia faced invasions by numerous groups, including Persians, Arabs, and Mongols. But these tunnels were carved by the people before them, the Indo-Europeans who built them, passing down their knowledge of them to the Cappadocians and Phrygians. The cities could be sealed from the inside with large stone doors, making them virtually impregnable. They included everything needed for extended stays, such as ventilation, shafts, water wells, storage rooms, kitchens, stables, chapels, and more. Derinkuyu is the largest and most famous underground city in Cappadocia, extending to a depth of approximately 60 meters, about 200 feet, and capable of housing as many as 20,000 people, along with their livestock. It includes all the amenities of an underground metropolis, such as wine and oil presses, schools, and chapels. Derinkuyu is connected to other underground cities through miles of tunnels. Kaimakli, another extensive underground city, is known for its well-organized layout over 8 levels, though only 4 are open to the public. Like Derinkuyu, it features a network of rooms and tunnels designed for living, storage, and worship, illustrating the ingenuity and resourcefulness of its inhabitants. Ozkanak, discovered more recently in 1972, features unique communication shafts that allowed residents to speak between levels. It also had holes above the entrances that could be used to pour hot oil on attackers, highlighting the defensive considerations in its design. The underground cities were carved from the soft volcanic rock that makes up Cappadocia's landscape. This material was easy to carve, but sturdy enough to support the extensive structures. The cities featured intricate ventilation systems to ensure the flow of fresh air, with deep shafts reaching the lower levels. They also included sophisticated water collection and storage systems to sustain life underground for extended periods. The underground cities of Cappadocia are a testament to the adaptability and resilience of the region's inhabitants throughout history. They provided a safe haven during periods of invasion and conflict, allowing the local culture and community to survive and thrive in challenging circumstances. These cities also have significant religious importance, serving as hidden sites for early Christian communities to practice their faith in secret underground during times of persecution. Across Europe, the Neolithic period saw the construction of dolmens and megalithic structures, such as those at Karnak, France, and the stone circles of Stonehenge, United Kingdom, which tracks the sun through the solstices and equinoxes. Dating from around 4000 BCE to 2500 BCE, these structures were likely used for religious or ceremonial purposes, including burial sites, temples, astronomical observations. They reflect the advanced engineering skills and cosmological interests of Neolithic societies of ancient Europe. Cave paintings, the bison licking the insect bite, famous 15,000 years ago, depicts a now extinct species, the bison priscus, made from reindeer antler fragments. The cave paintings of Lascaux, France, Altamira, Spain, and other sites across Europe, dating back to 17,000 to 14,000 years ago, represent some of the earliest known forms of visual art. The ancient rock paintings in caves depict a variety of animals, human figures, and abstract symbols, suggesting their creation for ritualistic or ceremonial purposes, possibly relating to hunting, magic, or shamanic practices. The most ancient artifacts found across Europe, from the Lion Man and Venus figurines to megalithic structures and cave paintings, offer a window into the spiritual, social, and artistic lives of Indo-European peoples. These artifacts underscore the deep-rooted human inclination towards art, symbolism, and the exploration of metaphysical concepts long before the advent of written history. A similar idol as the Venus figurine found across Stone Age Europe is in Anatolia, which is the figure of the Great Mother. This image of a grandmother figure flanked by two lions dates back to 5000 BCE, the end of the Stone Age. What is so mind-blowing about this idol is that it not only was found in the same region, Cappadocia, but that it also matches in later ancient goddess idols of Kubaba of the Hittites and Kubali of the Phrygians, who later becomes Kybele of the Romans and Cybele of today's language. Also, even in Roman times, she is depicted standing flanked by two lions. We can show transitional fossils of the same ancient stone idol of the Great Mother, flanked by two lions. And this is the same location where the famous Bronze Age temple of the Great Mother was, which was so ancient and important to both Greeks and Romans in the Iron Age that both cultures adopted the Great Mother into their pantheons at some point and gave her the title Mother of the Gods, and synced her to several other goddesses, especially Rhea of the Greeks, but also Isis of Egypt. The Greek bard Pindar, 518 BCE to 438 BCE, and the dithyramb, which begins with these words. In earlier times, there marched the lay of the dithyrambs, long drawn out. He then mentions the hymns sung in honor of Dionysus, but in the ancient and later ones, then passing down from these says, to perform the prelude in thy honor, Great Mother, the whirling of cymbals is at hand, and among them also the clanging of castanets and the torch that blazeth beneath the tawny pine trees. Even in Pindar's time, it was inconceivable how ancient the Great Mother was. He bears witness to the common relationship between the rites exhibited in the worship of Dionysus among the Greeks and those in the worship of the Mother of the Gods among the Phrygians, for he makes these rites closely akin to another. Later, Roman historian Livy, in the 1st century BCE, writes about a prophecy from the Sibylline oracle that said that to defeat Hannibal and the Carthaginians, the Great Mother of Phrygia must be brought to Rome and venerated. In 204 BCE, the Romans obtained an ancient statue of Cybele, Phrygians, and brought it to Rome. In 203 BCE, Hannibal abandoned the struggle in Italy to defend North Africa, and he suffered a devastating defeat at the hands of Scipio at Zama. The following year, Rome would go on to conquer not only Carthage, but the entire Mediterranean world by 63 BCE, when Pompey and Caesar were nearly unstoppable against their foes after Sulla and Marius paved the way. The Romans, also descended from Proto-Indo-Europeans, would bring the Stone Age Great Mother into the Common Era, and she would even go on to be a major influence on Christian theology of the Theotokos, Mother of God, Mary veneration in early Christianity. The dispersal of Proto-Indo-European speakers is closely tied to their nomadic pastoralist lifestyle, which relied heavily on the domestication of horses and innovations such as the wheel and chariot. These technological advances facilitated mobility over great distances, allowing Eurasian tribes to spread their language and culture across the Eurasian steppes. As we move into the Copper Age, also known as the Chalcolithic period, approximately 3500 to 2300 BCE, the spread of Proto-Indo-European speakers accelerated due to several factors. The development of copper metallurgy provided new tools and weapons, enhancing agricultural productivity and warfare capabilities. These advancements supported population growth and encouraged Eurasian tribes to explore new territories. During this time, Eurasian communities fragmented and migrated in various directions, leading to the differentiation of language into distinct but related dialects. These migrations can be traced through archaeological evidence, such as the spread of corded ware culture in northern Europe and the Yamnaya culture in the Pontic-Caspian steppe, both which are associated with the early Indo-European speakers. The transition to the Bronze Age, around 3000 BC, marked a significant turning point in the dissemination of Proto-Indo-European languages and cultures. The increased use of bronze, an alloy of copper and tin, further revolutionized tools, weapons, and artifacts. This period saw the emergence of more complex social structures, including chiefdoms, early states, which facilitated larger-scale migrations and conquest. Key migrations during the Bronze Age led to the establishment of Indo-European speaking populations across vast territories. For example, to the west, the expansion into Western Europe resulted in the Celtic, Italic, and Germanic branches. The Bell Beaker culture, for example, is associated with the spread of Indo-European languages into Western Europe. To the south, Indo-European tribes moved southward into the Balkans, giving rise to the Illyrian, Thracian, Pelasgian, Hellenic Greek branches. The Mycenaean civilization, part of the Greek branch, represents one of the earliest known Indo-European speaking societies. To the east, the eastward expansion into Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent led to the Indo-Iranian branch. This is evidenced by the Andronovo culture, which is linked to early Indo-Iranian languages. Further south, by the arrival of the Indo-Aryans, as documented in the Rig Veda, one of the oldest known Indo-European texts. To the north, the expansion into the Baltic and Slavic regions is evidenced by archaeological cultures such as the Trzeniec and Lusatian, associated with the early Indo-European languages in these areas. The Scythians, the Thracians, and other tribes we talked about in this video. The spread of Proto-Indo-European languages was not merely a linguistic phenomenon. It brought with it significant cultural, technological, and societal changes. Not only revolutionized transport and warfare, but also played a central role in the mythology and social structure of many Indo-European societies. Similarly, the development of metallurgy had a profound impact on economic and social organization, enabling the creation of wealth and hierarchical societies. As Proto-Indo-European speaking communities settled in new territories, their languages evolved in response to local conditions, interactions with non-Indo-European speaking populations, and internal dynamics. This process of diversification led to the formation of various Indo-European language families known today, including Romance, Germanic, Slavic, Indo-Iranian, and others. Linguistic studies, including comparative linguistics and phonology, have traced the development of these languages back to their Proto-Indo-European roots, offering insights into the prehistoric movements and interactions of Eurasian peoples. I cannot stress how much the spread of Proto-Indo-European speakers from the Stone Age through the Copper Age into the Bronze Age is a testament to the dynamic and interconnected nature of human history. Through a combination of technological innovations, social transformations, and migrations, the Eurasian peoples laid the foundation for the linguistic and cultural landscape of much of the known world. This period of expansion not only shaped the course of historical development in these regions, but also set the stage for religion in the Western world, the Mediterranean, and Europe, as well as India. The ancient Vedic religion, foundational to later Hinduism, and ancient European pagan religions, including those of the Greeks, Romans, Celts, and Germanic tribes, share a common ancestry in the Proto-Indo-European religion. This shared origin provides a fascinating lens through which to compare these diverse spiritual traditions, tracing how they evolved from a common source into distinct religions that have shaped the cultural and spiritual landscapes of the respected regions. The Eurasian people, living in the Eurasian steppe around the 4th millennium BCE, practiced a religion that laid the groundwork for the complex mythologies, rituals, and pantheons of the Vedic and ancient European religions. The Proto-Indo-European religion, reconstructed through linguistic studies and comparative mythology, featured a pantheon of gods associated with natural phenomena, a focus on sacrificial rituals, and a belief in an afterlife. As Eurasian tribes migrated and settled in various parts of Eurasia, their religious practices adapted to local conditions, evolving into the Vedic religion on the Indian subcontinent and various pagan religions in Europe. Both Vedic and ancient European religions developed pantheons of gods and goddesses with distinct functions but shared archetypes, reflecting their Eurasian origins. For instance, the Vedic Indra, a warrior god associated with rain and thunder, parallels the Norse Thor and the Greek Zeus, all of whom wield thunderbolts and fight cosmic battles. The Vedic fire god, Agni, finds echoes in the ancient European hearth goddess, Hestia, as well as the god Vulcan or Hephaestus, though the former is more actively involved in rituals and latter more symbolic presences. Mithras is a fascinating example of a deity whose worship spans multiple cultures and regions, illustrating the complex interplay of Indo-European religions and traditions from the Vedic pantheon through the Persian Zoroastrianism to the Greco-Roman world. The journey of Mithras worship from its Indo-European roots to its adoption and adaptation across different cultures highlights the fluidity of religious and cultural exchange. In the ancient Vedic religion, Mitra appears as one of the Adityas, a group of solar deities. Mitra is often invoked in conjunction with Varuna, and together they embody the aspects of oath, order, and justice, overseeing the moral and social order. The Rig Veda, one of the oldest texts in the Indo-Iranian world, mentions Mitra as a guardian of truth and friendship, emphasizing his role in the cosmic balance and his association with the light of dawn. As the religious landscape of the Indo-Iranian peoples diverge, Mithra's attributes evolved in the context of Zoroastrianism, the dominant religion of ancient Persia. In this tradition, Mithra, or Mir in Middle Persian, became a Yazata, or a divine entity associated with the sun, once again, also justice, contractual agreements. Mithra's role in Zoroastrianism as a mediator emphasized his jurisdiction over legal contracts, integrity, and the protection of truth, mirroring his Vedic origins but with a distinctly Persian framework. The worship of Mithra in Persia likely retained elements from earlier Indo-European traditions, possibly dating back to, as far as we know, in the Stone Age, emphasizing continuity despite the evolution of his divine attributes. Mithra's significance in Persian society is evident in the surviving inscriptions and religious texts, such as the Avesta, which detail his function and place within Zoroastrian pantheons. Mithras worship in the Greco-Roman world, known as the cult of Mithras or Mithraism, represents a further adaptation of this deity's worship, incorporating elements from Persian Zoroastrianism and local Roman religious traditions. Mithraism emerged in the Roman Empire around the 1st century BCE, after Pompey the Great defeated the Cilician pirates, who were Mithraists, taking a lot of them in and making them into legions. They flourished until the 4th century of the Common Era, when Christianity became the religion of the Romans. The Roman Mithras was a god of contracts, protector of the empire, and was associated with the sun, bearing the title Sol Invictus, unconquered sun. The mystery religion centered around the myth of Mithra slaying a bull, an act believed to bring life to the earth. This narrative, blending Roman, Vedic, Greek, and Iranian Mithra's characteristics with new theological elements to fit the Greco-Roman context. Mithraic worship was characterized by secretive rituals, initiations, and a hierarchical structure conducted in a cave temple called a Mithraea. The transmission of Mithras from the Indo-European to the Persian context, and then to the Greco-Roman world, is a testament to the cultural exchanges facilitated by trade, conquest, and migration. The adaptation of Mithras worship across these cultures underscores the deity's malleability and the capacity of religious systems to integrate foreign elements into their pantheons and practices. Often inscribed in these Mithraeas are ancient dialects of Proto-Indo-European languages, for example, Namasabesio. Persian adoption of Mithras from earlier Indo-European traditions exemplifies the Zoroastrian tendency to absorb pre-existing deities, reinterpreting them within a monotheistic or henotheistic framework that's centered on the worship of Ahura Mazda. This process allowed Mithras to retain aspects of his original character, while assuming new roles and significance in Persian society. The figure of Mithras serves as a bridge between the Vedic, Persian, and Greco-Roman religious traditions, embodying the shared heritage and divergent paths of Indo-European spirituality. His evolution from a Proto-Indo-European god to a Vedic deity of oaths and friendship to a Zoroastrian Yazata of the sun and justice, and finally a Roman god of soldiers in the empire, illustrates the dynamic nature of religious syncretism and the enduring influence Indo-European mythological motifs across time and geography. The figure of Prometheus, primarily known from Greek mythology as the titan who defied the gods to bring fire to humanity, has a traceable origin in Proto-Indo-European mythology as a specific deity or hero, with an identical narrative as the god who opposes the Devas, leads the Asuras like Ahura Mazda in Persian texts, and who was known as the god of forward thinking and technology. Hence the Greek prefix pro, before, plus metheus, intelligence, thus meaning forethinker. He was sometimes identified and swapped out with Hephaestus, the metallurgy craftsman god, identified with Roman Vulcan and Egyptian Ptah. For example, in some myths about the birth of Athena, it is Hephaestus who swings the axe that opens Zeus' head, allowing Athena to come out as a butterfly. And in other versions of the exact same myth, it is Prometheus who swings the axe. However, These gods, Prometheus and Hephaestus, appear in stories together as the plays of Aeschylus' trilogy, Hesiod's Theogony, works in days. Prometheus is separated from Hephaestus. In Prometheus Bound, as well as the Roman elegies in Latin, Prometheus is bound to a Scythian cliff, which is a clear nod to Prometheus as his own deity imported by the Europeans from the Black Sea region. The fact that Prometheus is a Titan who opposes the Olympians has a deep connection to Eastern religions that also stem from the Indo-Europeans, such as the Aryans, Medes, and Indus people. In the Vedic religion, Prometheus is the devil, the opposer. These priesthoods probably stem from a time when they oppose each other, leading to the strata of Titans and Olympians, who are also called daimons, laying a foundation for the angels and demons dichotomy. And Hermes is an angel of Zeus, or messenger of Zeus, who is sent by Zeus to take care of Prometheus. The Persians rejected the devas, or daemons, and worshipped the Titan gods, who they called asuras. In the Far East, this same Deva versus Asura dichotomy, or Daimon versus Titan dichotomy, is present. Mitra Varuna, just at the center of this dichotomy, two gods who are hyphenated like Janus, is the head of Saturn and Diana, a Titan and an Olympian. This god is associated with the Greek Ion and is central to the later Mithraic religion of Rome, and is a time god like the Persian Zorvan. The Hindus worship the Devas and reject the Asuras. This is why they have a pantheon similar to the Greeks and Romans, with a tyrannical skyfather at the helm, who was called Dies Pitar, which is cognate with Zeus Pater and Jupiter, all meaning skyfather. This god is later known as Indra in Vedic text, and then finally assumes the form of Vishnu and comes as human form of Krishna. This is due to Vedic religion being a religion of Deva worship. The word Deva and Daimon are cognates in the Proto-Indo-European language, and both are translated as mundane gods. The Pelasgians are somewhat of a mysterious and ancient people, mentioned in Greco-Roman literature, historical sources, including Homer, Herodotus, and Ovid, as well as other classical authors. They are described as the inhabitants of the Greek and Italic region before the arrival of the Hellenic tribes, the ancestors of the classical Greeks. They are mostly described as natives of Thessaly, north of the Mycenaeans. Homer, in the 8th century BCE, mentions them in the Iliad as people related to not only Greece, but in Asia Minor and farther north into Europe. Towards the sea lie the Carians, Paeonians, with curved bows, and the Leleges, and the Caucanes, and the goodly Pelasgi. Two of the tribes mentioned in that passage are from Anatolia, the Caucanes and Carians. The Leleges are in Greece. The Paeonians are all the way up into Europe, a tribe that are considered Thraco-Illyrian, sitting in between Greece and Italy, and are settled deep into Europe, even as far north as modern-day Germany. They are considered barbarian tribes by the Greeks until they were conquered by Philip of Macedon in the 4th century BCE. Later, in the Odyssey, Homer states that the Pelasgians lived in Crete among the natives, with 90 cities surrounding the capital, Knossos, which would place them among the Minoans. There was a land called Crete, in the midst of the wine-dark sea, a fair, rich land, rich with water, and therein are many men, past counting, and 90 cities. They have not all the same speech, but their tongues are mixed. There dwell Achaeans, their great-hearted native Cretans, Cadonians, and Dorians of waving plumes, and goodly Pelasgians. Among their cities is the great city, Knossos, where Minos reigned. When 9 years old, he held converse with great Zeus, and was father of my father, great-hearted Deucalion. Deucalion is the character in Greek mythology who survives the great flood that destroyed Atlantis and brings his 3 sons to the Aegean to start a new civilization. Roman writers would make the Pelasgians the ancestors of the Italians by way of Aeneas, who was a Trojan, descendants of the Pelasgians, and the Romans claimed to have Trojan blood. The exact origins, language, and culture of the Pelasgians remains subject of speculation and debate among historians and archaeologists, partly because they left behind very few, if any, written records that could be directly attributed to them. Pelasgians, who very well may be the same as the Proto-Indo-Europeans, are prehistoric people from whom many European and South Asian cultures are believed to have descended. This ancestral culture is thought to have existed several millennia BC before its people spread across Eurasia, differentiating into various linguistic and cultural groups. While direct archaeological evidence connecting the Pelasgians with Proto-Indo-European religion is limited, the study of burial practices, sacred sites, and religious artifacts from the broader Italic, Aegean, Balkan, and Anatolian regions during the relevant periods offers indirect clues. For instance, common motifs in religious iconography or similarities in ritual practices suggest shared, overlapping religious traditions. Greek mythology and literature, which occasionally reference the Pelasgians, might preserve echoes of pre-Hellenic religious beliefs and practices that have roots in Proto-Indo-European traditions. For example, certain deities or mythological themes present in Greek religion that are considered older or more primitive might trace back to these earlier inhabitants and their religious worldview. The ancient gods of the Greek and Roman pantheons and those found in Vedic traditions of India share common roots in these ancient Proto-Indo-European myths, reflecting shared themes, functions, and characteristics that can be traced back to the beliefs of the Eurasian peoples. These similarities are a result of the common linguistic and cultural heritage that spread and diversified as Indo-European speaking peoples migrated across Eurasia. Here are some examples of the deities from these traditions that exhibited notable similarities. As I already mentioned, Zeus and Jupiter, and Indra, who's also called Dies Pitar. Zeus and Jupiter are the kings of the gods in Greek and Roman mythology, respectively, wielding thunderbolts and associated with the sky and weather. Indra, in the Vedic tradition, is also a god of thunder and rain, known for wielding the thunderbolt, Vajra, and being a war deity who battles cosmic forces, much like Zeus and Jupiter. All three gods share characteristics that are likely derived from a common Proto-Indo-European deity associated with the sky, weather, and authority. This god is known as Dies Pitar, where we get Zeus, Pater, and Jupiter from. Hermes in Greek, Mercury in Roman, and Pushan in Vedic are related. Hermes and Mercury are gods of commerce, travel, and the guide of souls to the underworld. They are also associated with trickery and are messengers or angels of the gods. Pushan is a Vedic deity who protects travelers and herds and guides souls to the next world, similar to Hermes and Mercury. This connection suggests a Proto-Indo-European root for gods who are protectors of roads, herds, and are psychopomps in their roles. Aphrodite in Greek, Venus in Roman, and Ushas in Vedic. Aphrodite and Venus are goddesses of love, beauty, and fertility in Greek and Roman mythology. Venus is also a dawn goddess, the morning star. Venus is whose light is the last seen before daylight. Ushas is a Vedic goddess representing the dawn, often praised for her beauty and vitality. And while not a direct equivalent of Aphrodite or Venus in terms of domain, the thematic linkages of femininity, beauty, and vital forces suggest a common Proto-Indo-European motif of a revered female deity embodying life and attraction. There's also Eos, the goddess of dawn, who is also linguistically connected to Ushas. She is the original dawn goddess. Demeter in Greek, Ceres in Roman, and Aditi in Vedic are all connected as well. Demeter and Ceres are mother goddesses of agriculture and grain and the fertility of the earth in the Greek and Roman mythologies. Aditi is a Vedic goddess considered the mother of all the gods, the Adityas, and associated with the boundless fertility of the earth. Though the functions are not identical, the concept of a motherly earth goddess nurturing life is a theme likely rooted in the Proto-Indo-Europeans. We see these Mother Earth traits in Gaia and Kybele as well. The god Agni in Vedic culture has two counterparts in Western myths, Hestia in Greek, Vesta in Roman, as well as Vulcan and Hephaestus in Roman and Greek. Hestia and Vesta are goddesses of the hearth, home, and family in Greek and Roman mythology, embodying the sacred fire at the heart of communal and domestic life. Agni is a god of fire in Vedic traditions, crucial to sacrificial rites, and the protector of the home, like Vesta and Hestia. Although Agni is a male and more directly associated with fire itself than Hestia or Vesta, the centrality of the hearth and fire and rituals in the protection of community in the home hints at a common Eurasian origin for deities overseeing fire and its vital role. Vulcan and Hephaestus, the Greco-Roman gods of metallurgy and craftsmanship from the Greeks, Romans, as well as Ptah of the Egyptians. Agni is also known to be the god who makes weapons for the gods in his sacred forge, just as the gods Vulcan and Hephaestus do. The gods Shiva and Dionysus are related as well. Both Shiva and Dionysus are etymologically connected through the Black Sea region, where Dionysus was called Sabazius. Franz Cumont, classical philologist, points out that Saba is cognate with Shiva through the Proto-Indo-European word Shaba. The ancient historian Megasthenes from 320 BCE traveled to India with Alexander the Great and wrote that Shiva was the Eastern Dionysus. These parallels extend beyond the deities themselves, influencing myths, rituals, societal structures that reflect shared Indo-European heritage. The practice of making sacrificial offerings, the importance of fire in religious rituals, and the portrayal of gods in anthropomorphic forms are among the shared features that point to a common ancestral tradition. The similarities between the Greek, Roman, and Vedic deities underscore the profound influence of Proto-Indo-European mythology on its descendant cultures. Despite the geographical distance and evolution of distinct religious practices over millennia, the enduring legacy of these beliefs can be seen in the mythologies and rituals that have shaped the spiritual landscape of Eurasia and the Indian subcontinent. Sacrificial rituals were central to both Vedic and ancient European religions, a practice inherited from both the Eurasian ancestors. The Vedic religion elaborated these into complex fire sacrifices, yajnas, where offerings of ghee, grains, and sometimes animals were made to the gods through fire, a mediator between humans and the divine. Similarly, in ancient European traditions, offerings to the gods included animal sacrifices, such as the horse sacrifices to Odin in Norse mythology, or the various sacrifices performed in Greek and Roman temples. These rituals served to maintain cosmic order, Rita in Vedic, or Mora in Greek, and ensure the prosperity of the community. Both Vedic and ancient European religions shared a complex cosmology that includes a world tree, or axis mundi, Yggdrasil, or Norse mythology, and the Ashvata in Vedic text, realms inhabited by the gods, humans, and other beings, and a belief in an afterlife. Mount Olympus, also similar in respect. While the specific details varied, these cosmologies reflected a worldview in which the universe was interconnected whole, governed by law and order. The concept of an afterlife also shares similarities, both traditions positing realms for the dead that were rewards or punishment based on one life's actions. The Vedic tradition emphasized the cycle of rebirth, samsara, and liberation, moksha. The Greeks held the doctrine of transmigration of the soul. Both of these are called reincarnation. The social structures of societies practicing Vedic and ancient European religions were both influenced by their religious beliefs, with a special role carved out for a priestly class, the Brahmins in Vedic society, and the Druids among the Celts, for example. These priests were custodians of religious knowledge, responsible for performing rituals and maintaining the connections between the divine and the human world. This reflects the Proto-Indo-European society's emphasis on sacrificial rituals and the central role of the priesthood in mediating between gods and humans. Over time, both the Vedic and ancient European religions underwent significant transformations, influenced by internal developments and external interactions. The Vedic religion evolved into classical Hinduism, integrating local traditions and philosophical insights, while ancient European religions were eventually supplanted or transformed by Christianity. However, traces of the ancient religions persisted in folk practices, myths, and cultural motifs, demonstrating the enduring enduring legacy of the Proto-Indo-European religious tradition. The comparison between the ancient Vedic and the religion of ancient Europe reveals a shared heritage that has blossomed into a rich diversity of spiritual traditions. Despite their divergent paths, these religions retain common elements that hark back to their Proto-Indo-European roots, including a pantheon of deities with similar functions, the importance of sacrificial rituals, a complex cosmology, and the role of a priestly class. This shared ancestry highlights the interconnectedness of human societies and the ways in which cultural and spiritual practices evolve over time, adapting to new environments while retaining core elements of their original tradition. The study of these ancient religions offers not only insights into the spiritual lives of our ancestors, also a deeper understanding of the common threads that weave through a tapestry of human belief. The Thracian religion, polytheistic and animistic belief system, played a central role in the lives of the Thracian people, an ancient group that inhabited the southeastern Balkans in areas now part of Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. This ancient religion, which predates the arrival of Christianity in the region, was characterized by its rich mythology, rituals, and deities, many of which were synchronized with the gods of the Greek and Roman pantheons. Although the Thracians did not leave behind written records of their religious practices, information has been gleaned from Greek and Roman sources, archaeological findings, and the study of region's folklore. Central to the Thracian religion were the numerous deities that governed the natural phenomena, human endeavors, and the afterlife. Among the most revered was the hero god Zalmaxis, or Zamaxis, who was believed to ensure the immortality of the soul and was sometimes identified with the Greek god Dionysus. Another important deity was Bendis, the goddess of the moon and the hunt, who was associated with Artemis in Greek religion, and the Thracian horsemen, also known as the heroes, depicted in numerous reliefs and artifacts, symbolized a god of the afterlife and was a protector of the community. Thracian religious practices were deeply intertwined with nature and the agricultural calendar. Rituals often involved animal sacrifices, offerings of food and wine, and ceremonial feasts. Festivities were held in honor of the gods, seeking their favor for fertility, victory in war, and protection from natural disasters. Sacred places for these rituals included open-air sanctuaries, mountain peaks, and specially constructed tombs, which were lavishly decorated with frescoes depicting religious scenes. The Thracians also practiced oracular rituals, seeking divinations from the gods regarding the future. These rituals were conducted by priests or priestesses who entered trance-like states, often induced by music, psychedelics, dance, and the consumption of intoxicating beverages. The answers received from the gods were interpreted and relayed to the supplicants, guiding them in their decisions. The Thracians held a strong belief in the afterlife, as evidenced by their elaborate burial practices. Tombs were constructed to resemble houses, indicating a belief in a life beyond death that continued in a manner similar to the earthly existence. Grave goods, including weapons, jewelry, pottery, were buried with the deceased, intended for use in the afterlife. This practice suggests a belief in the soul's journey to another world where it would need the objects that had been important in its earthly life. The interaction of Thracian tribes with Greek and Roman civilizations led to significant syncretism in religious practices and beliefs. Thracian deities were often identified with those of the Greek and Roman pantheons, and the incorporation of Greek and Roman religious elements into Thracian worship was common. This syncretism facilitated the integration of Thracian society into the broader Hellenistic and Roman worlds, but it also makes it challenging for historians to distinguish purely Thracian religious elements from those borrowed from neighboring cultures. Despite the eventual Christianization of Thracian regions, elements of the ancient Thracian religion have survived into the folklore, customs, and festivals of the Balkans. For example, the horse rider ends up becoming the iconography used for some of the saints, like Saint George and Saint Demetrius. Some rituals and beliefs, particularly those related to the agricultural calendar and the veneration of saints who may have replaced ancient deities, bear traces of Thracian religious practices. The study of Thracian religion offers offers valuable insights into the spiritual life of an ancient people whose cultural legacy has contributed to the development of European civilization itself. Through archaeological discoveries and the analysis of classical texts, scholars continue to uncover the complexities of Thracian beliefs and rituals, shedding light on the religion of a society that thrived over 2 millennia ago. Thracian religion was complex and multifaceted. It was a belief system that played a vital role in the social and cultural fabric of European society. Its deities and rituals reflected the Thracians' deep connection to the natural world and their concerns with fertility and protection in the afterlife. Scythian religion, practiced by the nomadic Scythian tribes that roamed the vast steppes of Eurasia from around the 9th century BC to the 4th century of the Common Era, is a fascinating subject that intertwines mythology, nature worship, ancestor veneration. The Scythians, known for their skills in horseback riding and archery, left behind a legacy that has been pieced together through archaeological finds, the writings of ancient Greek historians, and comparative studies with the beliefs of later Turkic and Mongolic peoples. The Scythian pantheon was rich and varied, with deities that oversaw different aspects of nature, human endeavor. The primary gods included Tabiti, the queen of the gods, often associated with the hearth and fire. The Hindus of India had a goddess named Tabiti as well, same name as the prior Scythian, goddess of the Tapti River in India, and she was the goddess that brought warmth to the world. Both Scythian Tabiti and Hindu Tabiti come from the Proto-Indo-European name Tapiati, which is still preserved in the Avestan language, which means burning one. This Scythian goddess shows up in other areas, such as the Sarmatian tribes of the Alans, the name Satana, the queen of the gods, Papaios, the Sky Father, who plays a similar role as Zeus, but also has chthonic forms, and in later times might have got synced with the Phrygian Attis. For reasons that are unclear, it may have been the Phrygian Sabazius who was being synced with Scythian Papaios, who was also dual nature, chthonic and heavenly, with father and son rolled into one. Api was a Scythian earth mother who was also connected to fresh water, and Targetaos, the demigod hero, who was said to have given Scythians their lands. The myth of Targetaos involves an ancient Indo-European story that involves Targetaos stealing cattle. This is possibly the oldest surviving myth in world history by some experts, and at the very least, one of the oldest to survive. The reference to Heracles driving the cattle Geryon also reflects the motif of the cattle-stealing god widely present among Indo-Iranic peoples, which is also reflected in the legend of Mithra as a cattle-stealing god. Due to this, the Greek author Herodotus of Halicarnassus identified Targetava with Heracles in his writings. These deities reflect Scythians' deep connection with the natural world and the importance they played on the cosmic order. In addition to these major gods, the Scythians also worshipped a host of lesser deities and spirits associated with rivers, mountains, and other natural features, embodying the animistic elements of their religion. Animal worship, particularly of horses and stags, and goddesses with serpent legs, responsible for healing and medicines, was prevalent, symbolizing the Scythians' nomadic and close-to-nature lifestyle and their dependence on these animals for survival. Scythian religious practices were characterized by their simplicity and directness, reflecting the nomadic lifestyle of the people. Sacrifices played a central role, with animals such as horses, cattle, and sheep being offered to the gods to gain their favor or to mark significant events such as funerals, oaths, and seasonal transitions. These sacrifices were often accompanied by feasting and ritual drinking of kurnis, fermented mare's milk, which had been both sacred and social significance. The Scythians also practiced divination and sought the guidance of the gods through various means, including the interpretation of animals and trails and the flight of birds, similar to what we see with the Roman augurs in Roman religion. These practices were conducted by shamans or priests who served as intermediaries between the Scythian people and the spiritual realm. Funerary practices provide significant insights into Scythian religious beliefs, particularly the views on the afterlife and ancestor worship. The Scythians constructed large burial mounds called kurgans, which served as tombs for their elite. These tombs contained not only the remains of the deceased, but also a wealth of grave goods, including weapons, jewelry, and items for personal use in the afterlife. The funeral rites often involved complex rituals, including the sacrifice of attendants and horses to accompany the deceased into the afterlife, indicating a belief in a continued existence beyond death. The Scythians also practiced mummification and tattooing, with the tattoos possibly serving religious and spiritual purposes, such as providing protection in the afterlife or signifying the individual's status and achievements. The Scythian religion was not static but evolved over time, influenced by interactions with neighboring cultures, including the Greeks, Persians, and various nomadic groups. This syncretism is evident in the adoption of foreign deities into the Scythian pantheon and the incorporation of elements from other religious traditions into Scythian practices. The cult of Dionysus, for example, became popular among Scythians, reflecting the influence of Greek religion and culture. The Scythian religion and its practices left a lasting impact on the cultures of the Eurasian steppe, influencing the religious beliefs of later nomadic peoples, including the Sarmatians, Alans, and early Turkic tribes. Elements of Scythian religion can be traced in the mythologies and traditions of these groups, demonstrating the enduring legacy of the Scythian spiritual worldview. The study of Scythian religion provides valuable insights into the ways in which nomadic societies understood the world around them and sought to explain and influence natural and supernatural phenomena. Despite the challenges posed by lack of written records, the archaeological evidence and the accounts of ancient authors offer a window into the religious life of the Scythians, revealing a complex belief system that was integral to the identity and way of life. Scythian religion was a multifaceted system of beliefs and practices that reflected the nomadic lifestyle, environmental conditions, and social structure of the Scythian people. Through their veneration of deities associated with nature, ritual practices involving psychedelics, and their beliefs in the afterlife, the Scythians expressed their understanding of the cosmos and their place within it. Ancient Slavic paganism, deeply rooted in the natural world and the cycles of life, represents a complex tapestry of beliefs, rituals, and deities that were central to the Slavic peoples of Eastern Europe before the widespread adoption of Christianity. This polytheistic and animistic belief system dates back as far as we can document Slavic religion and offers a glimpse into the spiritual life, cultural practices, and worldview of the ancient Slavs. While direct historical sources are scarce due to the oral nature of these traditions and the later Christianization efforts which sought to supplant pagan practices, archaeological findings, linguistic studies, and the writings of contemporary observers provide insights into this rich spiritual heritage. At the heart of ancient Slavic paganism was a pantheon of gods and goddesses, each overseeing aspects of nature, human activity, and the cosmos. The chief deity was likely Perun, the god of thunder and lightning, which often depicted wielding a thunderbolt and associated with oak trees, similar to the Pelasgian Zeus, who was also an oak tree god who wielded a thunderbolt. This was the Zeus at Dodona, one of the ancient wonders of the ancient world. He symbolized the might of the natural world and was revered as a protector of warriors and the order of society. Opposite Perun stood Veles, the god of the underworld, cattle, commerce, and the arts, symbolizing the chthonic forces and often depicted as a serpent or dragon in conflict with Perun, reflecting a fundamental cosmic dualism. Other significant deities included Svarog, the sky god and celestial smith, Dasbog, the sun god, Makash, the goddess of fertility and protector of women, and Lada, the goddess of love and beauty. Each deity had a specific domain, and their worship was integrated into the daily lives and seasonal cycles of the Slavic people, reflecting their dependence and reverence for the natural world. The pantheon itself shows many similarities to the Greek and Roman pantheons, as well as the Indian pantheons, showing direct connections to the Proto-Indo-European roots of all of these pantheons. Slavic pagan rituals were closely tied to agricultural calendars, marking the changing seasons, sowing and harvest times, and other natural cycles. These rituals often involved offerings of food, drink, and animals to the gods, seeking their favor for bountiful harvests, protection, and prosperity. Festivals such as the Kupala Night, celebrating the summer solstice, and Maslenitsa, marking the end of the winter, were significant, featuring bonfires, dances, and symbolic acts like jumping over fires for purification and fertility. Ancestors and the spirits of the deceased played a crucial role in ancient Slavic belief. Commemorative feasts, known as Diadi, were held to honor them, rooted in the belief that the well-being of the living was intricately linked to the satisfaction of their ancestors. Sacred groves, springs, and stones served as places of worship and communion with the divine, emphasizing the animistic aspect of Slavic paganism, where spirits inhabited various aspects of the natural world. Divination and magic were integral to ancient Slavic paganism, and various methods employed to foretell the future or influence outcomes. This could involve interpreting the behavior of animals, once again, the flight of birds, like we see with the Roman augurs, or the patterns of thrown bones or stones. Sorcerers and wise women, known as Volkve or Veduni, played pivotal roles in Slavic communities, offering guidance, healing, and protection through their knowledge of magical practices and herbal remedies. The process of Christianization of the Slavic pagans, which began in earnest in the 9th century, led to significant transformations in Slavic pagan practices. Many pagan gods and rituals were syncretized with Christian saints and holidays, a testament to the deep-rooted nature of these beliefs among the Slavic peoples. This syncretism allowed for the survival of ancient practices and deities in altered forms, woven into the fabric of Christian worship and the folklore that has persisted into modern times. The legacy of ancient Slavic paganism is evident in the rich tapestry of folklore, customs, and cultural practices that continue across Slavic lands to this day. Festivals that have pagan origins are still celebrated, and elements of pagan belief are found in folk songs, dances, and tales passed down through the generations. In recent years, there has been a revival of the interest in Slavic pagan traditions, with contemporary movements seeking to rediscover and celebrate this ancient spiritual heritage. Ancient Slavic paganism presents a multifaceted and deeply interconnected system of beliefs and practices that reflect the Slavic people's profound connection to the natural world and their attempts to understand and influence the forces shaping their lives. Through the worship of a rich pantheon of deities that's rooted in the ancient Indo-Europeans, the observance of rituals marking the cycles of nature and the veneration of their ancestors, the ancient Slavs forged a spiritual worldview that has endured and evolved, leaving a lasting impact on the cultural and spiritual landscape of Eastern Europe. The Celtic religion, a complex and multifaceted spiritual system, was practiced by the Celtic peoples of ancient Europe and the British Isles. From the late Bronze Age through the Roman period into the early medieval period, this polytheistic and animistic belief system is characterized by its rich mythology, pantheon of gods and goddesses, sacred rituals, and the reverence of nature. The religion of the Celts, though not uniformly practiced across all Celtic tribes due to regional variations, shared core beliefs and practices that offer a glimpse into the spiritual life of these ancient people. Due to the Celts' own lack of written records on religious matters, much of what is known comes from archaeological findings, the accounts of Greek and Roman writers, and later Christian sources, which, while informative, often present a biased perspective. The Druids, the priesthood of the Celts, acted as mages but also as doctors, in control of healing and religious matters. At the heart of Celtic religion was a diverse pantheon of deities, each with their own domains, attributes, and stories. These gods and goddesses were closely tied to the natural elements and phenomena, reflecting the Celts' deep reverence for the natural world. The chief god, often recognized, was the Dagda, known as the good god, for his powers over life, death, and agriculture. His attributes included a cauldron of abundance and a club that could kill or give life. Morrigan, a goddess of battle and fate, often represented in a trio of aspects, symbolized the sovereignty of the land and the inevitability of death. She is likened to the goddess Athena and Minerva, but also, in some areas, Persephone, Demeter, and Hecate, maiden, mother, and crone. Another prominent deity was Lu, associated with craftsmanship, light, and kingship. Lu, being the light bringer, is associated with Lucifer of the Romans and Phosphorus of the Greeks, as well as Apollo, all being gods of light. Lu, however, is portrayed as a warrior, king, and master craftsman and a savior. Like the god Saturn, he is a god of harvest and agriculture, as well as oaths and contracts, like Mithras. Lu is a member of the Tuatha De Danann, a tribe of gods known as the folk of the goddess Danu. The Tuatha De Danann are frequently portrayed as a mix of kings, sages, druids, poets, warriors, sorcerers, and artisans endowed with magical abilities. They reside in the underworld, yet they engage with the human realm and its inhabitants. These beings are linked to the Siddhe, significant old burial sites like Bru Naboine, considered gateways to the realms of the otherworld. The goddess Danu, who they are descended from and follow, is the Great Mother who created the cosmos and the world. The god Lu was not originally a member of the Tuatha De Danann, and when he tried to join them, he offered his services as a wright, a smith, a champion, a swordsman, a harpist, a hero, a poet, a historian, a sorcerer, and a craftsman, but each time is rejected, as they already had someone with each of those skills. When Lu asks if they have anyone with all of those skills simultaneously, the doorkeeper has to admit defeat, and Lu joins the court and is appointed as the leader of the Tuatha De Danann. Lu, however, is not the only Celtic god linked with Apollo. Belenus is an ancient Celtic deity of the sun, healing, and music, as well as oracular prophecy, and is also identified with the Greek god Apollo. The poet Pindar stated that the Hyperboreans, who are the people of the deep north, worshipped Apollo and probably had Celtic Belenus in mind when he wrote this verse.
Neither by ship nor on foot could you find the marvelous road to the meeting place of the Hyperboreans. Once Perseus, the leader of his people, entered their homes and feasted among them, when he found them sacrificing glorious hecatombs of donkeys to the god. In the festivities of those people and in their praises, Apollo rejoices most, and he laughs when he sees the arrogance of the beasts. The muse is not absent from their customs. All around swirl the dances of girls, the lyres' loud chords, and the cries of flutes. They wreath their hair with golden laurel branches and revel joyfully. No sickness or ruinous old age is mixed into the sacred race. Without toil or battles, they live without fear of strict nemesis, breathing boldness of spirit. Once the son of Danae went to that gathering of blessed men, and Athena led him there. He killed the Gorgon and came back bringing stony death to the islanders, the head that shimmered with hair made of serpents. Pindar, Pythian Odes.
Furthermore, Plato talks about a man named Abaris the Hyperborean, a Celtic druid who was said to have been initiated and taught by Pythagoras himself. Later Celtic legends write about Abaris as one of the earliest druids, further connecting the Celts to the Hyperboreans. Hecataeus of Abdera also wrote that the Celts had on their island
Celts, a magnificent sacred precinct of Apollo, and a notable temple which is adorned with many votive offerings and is spherical in shape. Hecataeus of Abdera.
Some scholars have identified this temple with Stonehenge due to its grand spherical shape and the fact that Druids at Stonehenge venerated the solstices and equinoxes at this site, and makes it a perfect fit for Apollo or Belenus worship. Stonehenge, built in prehistoric times, located in modern-day Wiltshire, England, is one of the world's most famous prehistoric monuments. It is particularly renowned for its alignment with the movements of the sun, and therefore Apollo, which has led to widespread speculation about its original purpose, with many believing it was used as a kind of astronomical observatory. It has also been demonstrated that music performed in the center of Stonehenge sounds louder and travels farther, like an ancient music amplifier. This is another reason why Apollo is linked to this area. Stonehenge's design and orientation are closely connected with the sun, The most significant solar alignments occur at the solstices. During the summer solstice, the sun rises behind the heel stone, the ancient entrance to the stone circle, and its first rays shine directly into the heart of Stonehenge. This event attracts thousands of visitors every year who gather to celebrate and witness the sunrise. It is believed that the summer solstice was of great importance to the people who built Stonehenge, possibly associated with fertility and harvest. The winter solstice, on the other hand, is observed in the opposite direction. During this time, the sunset is framed by the stone circle, making it the shortest day of the year. It is thought that this event might have symbolized the end of the year and the rebirth of the sun, holding significant meaning for Neolithic people. While the exact purpose of Stonehenge remains a subject of speculation and research, its alignment with the sun's solstices and possibly equinoxes suggests that it served as a calendar or astronomical observatory to mark the changing of the seasons. This would have been essential for a society that depended on farming, as it helped them keep track of the solar year. Stonehenge also holds cultural and spiritual importance, which is evident from the burial mounds and other ceremonial sites in the surrounding landscape. Herodotus tells us that the Celts would watch Apollo perform his paeans with his lyre in the sky during the season when he would leave the Oracle of Delphi in Greece for the winter time and perform for the Celts, and this would materialize in a light show in the sky, which is known to us as the Aurora Borealis, Northern Lights. Atipomeris, also called the Great Horse Rider, is the hero demigod who is also associated with the god Apollo, but some sources suggest that his association with Dionysus and Hermes in later times, Atipomeris is synced with Odin of the Germans. He is the horse-riding hero with the power of prophecy, healing, and possession of souls, and can travel into the underworld and return unharmed. Goddesses held significant roles in Celtic religion, often embodying the land's fertility and sovereignty. Brigid, for example, was venerated for her protection over childbirth, inspiration, poetry, and craftsmanship. Such deities were worshipped through various rituals, offerings, and celebrations, which were deeply entwined with agricultural calendar and changing seasons. Rituals were a central aspect of Celtic religion, serving as a means to commune with the divine and ensure the community's prosperity and protection. These rituals often took place in natural settings, considered to be imbued with sacred power, such as groves, springs, rivers, and hills. The Druids, a class of priests, poets, and jurists, played a crucial role in conducting religious ceremonies, which included seasonal festivities, sacrifices, and divination practices. The four main Celtic festivals, known as the fire festivals, marked critical points of agricultural and seasonal cycles. Imbolc, Beltane, Lughnasadh, Samhain, for example, celebrated at the end of October, marked the end of the harvest season and the onset of winter. It was a time when the veil between the worlds was believed to be thinnest, allowing for communication with the ancestors and the spirit world. Samhain was a New Year's festival for the Celts. As Roman culture began to mix with Celtic culture in the Age of Antiquity and the Common Era, the Celts would adopt the rituals of the Roman New Year Janus festival, which entailed dressing up and wearing masks and having children go house to house to receive gifts. These rites would even make their way into Halloween tradition and are still around today. Sacrifices, both animal and, according to some Roman sources, occasionally human, were a component of Celtic religious practice, intended to appease the gods and ensure fertility of the land and the community's well-being. Such rituals underscored the Celts' belief in the interconnectedness of the natural world, the divine, and human society. The Celts viewed the landscape around them as alive and infused with spiritual significance. Rivers, trees, especially the oak and yew, springs, and certain animals were revered as manifestations of the divine or as dwelling places of deities. The concept of Nemetan, a sacred space or grove, highlights the importance of natural settings in Celtic worship. These places served as open-air sanctuaries where rituals and gatherings were held, emphasizing the animistic aspect of Celtic religion that saw the divine in all aspects of the natural world. With the Roman conquest of Celtic lands and the spread of Christianity, Celtic religion underwent significant transformations. The Romans, following their practice of Interpretatio Romano, identified Celtic gods with their own deities, leading to a syncretism that both preserved and altered the original Celtic beliefs and practices. The subsequent Christianization of Celtic lands from the 5th century onward led to further transformations, with many Celtic deities and rituals being absorbed into Christian practice, as we've seen in celebration of Christian saints and holidays that coincides with the Celtic festivals, such as Halloween and Samhain. The Celts migrated in every direction, just as their Proto-Indo-European ancestors did. We find Celtic tribes, the Galatians for example, all the way in Anatolia in the east and as far west as North Africa and Spain. Despite the decline of Celtic paganism as an organized religion, its legacy has endured through folklore, customs, and the celebration of festivals such as Beltane and Samhain in modern times. In recent years, there has been a revival of interest in Celtic spirituality, with neo-pagan and New Age movements seeking to rediscover and incorporate Celtic religious practices, myths, and reverence for nature into their beliefs. The Celtic religion, with its rich pantheon of gods and goddesses, its sacred rituals rooted in the natural and agricultural cycles, and its animistic view of the world, offers a window into the spiritual and cultural life of Indo-European religion itself, and what it once was before the Copper Age spread. Closely related is the Germanic pagans, who lived just east of the Celts. The religion of the ancient Germanic peoples during the Bronze Age, a period extending roughly from 2300 to 500 BCE in Northern Europe, presents a complex tapestry woven from archaeological findings, comparative mythology, and later historical accounts. While direct written evidence from the Bronze Age is scarce, insights into their spiritual life can be gleaned from burial sites, artifacts, and the comparative study of later Germanic texts and folklore. This religious tradition, characterized by polytheism, animism, reveals a deeply interconnected worldview that blended the natural environment, societal values, and cosmic order into a coherent spiritual practice. The Norse-Germanic pantheon of the Bronze Age, while not documented in contemporaneous sources, likely consisted of precursors to the gods and goddesses known from later Norse and Germanic mythology. Deities such as Wodan, Donar, and Freya, whose worship is attested in the Iron Age and Viking Age, may have had their origins in the earlier period, embodying aspects of nature, war, fertility, sovereignty. The worship of these deities involved rituals, sacrifices, and veneration of natural phenomena as seen as manifestations of divine power. Odin, the king of the Germanic gods, known as the Aesir, cognate with Asuras and linked to the Titans, who opposed the Vanir, the family of gods who was linked to the Daemons or Olympians. Once again, we see the ancient Indo-European dichotomy of gods that are passed down from opposing priesthoods of chthonic and sky deities present in Germanic religion. Odin is linked with several deities of the Greco-Roman pantheon. For one, Woden's Day becomes Wednesday, which was Mercury's day for the Romans. And Odin, like Mercury and Hermes, was a psychopomp who can transport souls to Asgard, as well as Odin being the inventor of the runes, or Norse alphabet, just as Hermes does in Greek mythology. Odin is also depicted with a helmet of wings like Mercury is depicted, but Odin has other aspects of his character that link him to other deities. Like the god Apollo, Odin is the god of music and prophecy, and he sends ravens to people for oracular purposes. We see this exact same raven oracle system with Apollo, who is also the god of music and prophecy. Another aspect of Odin is the Saturnian Dionysian aspect. He is the All-Father, who is sacrificed for mankind like Saturn, the father of Thor, who is the Sky Father, like Saturn is the father of Zeus, the Sky Father. Odin has the power to possess and take over souls through divine mania, an obvious Dionysian connection. Odin's name means frenzy, and Dionysus is literally the god of the frenzy. This makes Odin a very powerful god who deserves respect in the world of mythology. The Germanic goddess Eostre, who is probably linked to Freya and Aphrodite due to all of them being dawn goddesses named for the month of April, and she becomes the name of the Christian festival for Easter. When Jesus resurrects at the spring equinox, Eostre shows up in the writings of Saint Bede as the origins for the name of the month and thus the name of the Easter festival. Ritual practices of the Bronze Age Germanic peoples are inferred from archaeological sites, such as the bog bodies and deposits in sacred lakes and bogs, which suggest offerings to the gods or ancestors, possibly as part of fertility rites or in supplication for successes in war or agriculture. The significance of the sun chariot found in Trundhold, Denmark, indicates a solar cult with the sun playing a central role in their cosmology and religious calendar. This artifact, depicting a disc interpreted as the sun being drawn by a horse, underscores the importance of solar cycles in agricultural societies and may have been part of rituals celebrating the changing seasons. Ancestor worship played a crucial role in Bronze Age Germanic religion, as evidenced by elaborate burial mounds, grave goods, and ceremonies designed to honor the dead and secure their favor. These practices suggest a belief in an afterlife where the deceased continue to influence the living world. The construction of monumental burial sites, such as the passage graves and dolmens scattered across northern Europe, serve both as tombs and places of worship, where rituals could be performed to ensure well-being of the community by appeasing ancestral spirits. The animistic aspect of Bronze Age Germanic religion saw the presence of spirits and divine forces in all elements of the natural world. Sacred groves, springs, rocks, and trees were often the sites of veneration and ritual, believed to be dwelling places of gods or spirits. These locales were central to the practice of Germanic paganism, serving as natural temples where individuals and communities could engage with the divine. The reverence for certain animals, particularly those associated with deities such as the boar, horse, and raven, also reflects the animistic belief in the spiritual significance of the natural world. While the use of runes is primarily attested in later Iron Age, the symbolic motifs found on Bronze Age artifacts, such as the sun cross, swastikas, and ship images, suggest a rich symbolic language through which Germanic peoples express their cosmological ideas and religious beliefs. Similar symbols found in Vedic cultures in India of swastikas and sun crosses are present, showing the connections of the Indo-Europeans across the continents. Even the earliest Greek and Etruscan vases show abundance of sun wheels and swastika-like images. These symbols, found on rock carvings, jewelry, and weapons, may have served both magical and religious purposes, offering protection, ensuring fertility, and representing the cyclical nature of life and the cosmos. The Germanic religion of the Bronze Age was not static but evolved over time, influenced by interactions with neighboring cultures, such as the Celts, Balts, and Roman Empire. These exchanges led to a degree of syncretism, where elements of one culture's religion was integrated into another's. The eventual spread of Roman influence and later Christianization would significantly transform the Germanic religious landscape, though many pagan practices and beliefs persisted, adapted into new religious framework, or surviving in folk traditions. The religion of the Bronze Age Germanic peoples, while only partially understood, laid the foundation for the rich tapestry of Norse and Germanic mythology and religious practice known from later periods. The archaeological and mythological remnants of this era continue to inspire interest and reverence, with the revival of pagan traditions and neo-pagan movements seeking to reconnect with these ancient spiritual practices. The religion of the Bronze Age Germanic peoples offers a fascinating glimpse into the spiritual life of ancient northern Europe. Through the veneration of deities and ancestors, the sanctification of the natural world, and the use of symbolic motifs, these ancient communities articulated a worldview that saw the divine in every aspect of the natural and human order. Despite the scarcity of written records, the archaeological and mythological legacy of the Bronze Age provides a window into the beliefs of the Indo-European people as a whole when we compare them with the Hindus and Celts living west and as far east of the Germans and Slavic people. To conclude this journey across the Eurasian continent, which begins deep in the Stone Age, around the Black Sea and Caspian Sea region, and as we spread into all four directions across time. Places like Göbekli Tepe, Knossos, Pomerania, and Harappa. We see the beginning of the Copper Age, which takes the world from prehistoric hunter-gatherers into a civilization, and then the Bronze Age, as tools and human knowledge begins to expand. We see the Pelasgians, the Celts, Hittites, Aryans, and into the Iron Age, the Scythians, the Thracians, Vedic Hindus, Slavs, and Norse Germanic Hyperboreans, all distinct in their culture. Yet a common thread is seen across them that show us the deeply rooted relationship that transcends all these regions in the language, the religious motifs, the pantheons, and the artistic expressions that remind us how connected the world is. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. I definitely want to explore this topic more in the future. You have just attained true gnosis.